The look on Princess Catherine's as she exited that private meeting said everything the palace couldn't. Something was wrong, and it involved Charlotte. What was first dismissed as a rumor soon turned into a royal firestorm, now confirmed by the very people who fought to protect it. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the whispers seemed too vague to attract serious attention. Palace aides moved carefully, conversations became shorter, and questions were met with unusually guarded responses. Behind closed doors, Catherine and Prince William were reportedly involved in a series of private discussions with trusted medical advisors, meetings that immediately sparked concern among those accustomed to the predictable rhythms of royal life. The atmosphere surrounding these conversations felt different. It carried a weight that even the most disciplined palace staff struggled to conceal. Reports soon began circulating about a sudden health development involving Princess Charlotte. No official announcement was made, and no detailed explanation was offered. Instead, an extraordinary silence settled over the palace. Those who normally provided reassurance remained quiet. Those known for dismissing speculation refused to comment. The absence of information only intensified the growing concern. The secrecy itself became the story. Observers who had followed the royal family closely for years began noticing subtle changes. Media insiders later claimed that something had felt unusual for weeks. There were whispers that schedules had been adjusted. Certain appearances seemed carefully managed. Private engagements became increasingly protected from public view. None of these developments appeared significant on their own. Together, however, they formed a troubling pattern that was becoming impossible to ignore. What truly fueled speculation was Catherine's reaction. Those present during one particularly important meeting reportedly described her as visibly shaken afterward. Normally composed and measured, she appeared burdened by concerns she could not publicly discuss. For many observers, that moment became the first indication that something serious was unfolding behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Prince William's actions only deepened the mystery. Later that evening, reports emerged that he had spent considerable time comforting Charlotte. No official explanation accompanied the claims. Yet the image of a devoted father standing beside his daughter resonated deeply with those following the unfolding situation. It suggested that whatever was happening carried emotional consequences far beyond palace protocol and public appearances. Yet, while attention remained firmly fixed on Charlotte, another confidential matter was quietly advancing through the highest levels of the royal institution. Hidden beneath the growing concern was a sealed royal decision that had been approved long before the public had any reason to suspect it existed. This decision was connected to one of Queen Elizabeth's most sacred ceremonial responsibilities, a role steeped in symbolism, duty, and immense historical significance. Only a select circle of senior royals and trusted advisors knew the truth. They understood that the decision would reshape perceptions of the monarchy's future. And at the very center of that secret stood one name: Catherine. But the chilling truth wasn't just about Charlotte's health. It was tied to a royal legacy that had long been buried until now. For decades, this responsibility had been considered untouchable, a sacred duty so closely associated with Queen Elizabeth II that many believed it would disappear with her. Yet behind the scenes, plans were already being made to pass it on. As questions surrounding Charlotte continued to dominate quiet conversations within royal circles, an entirely different story was unfolding beneath the surface. Hidden from public attention and protected by layers of discretion, senior palace officials had been wrestling with a decision that carried enormous consequences for the future of the monarchy. This was not merely about assigning another ceremonial responsibility. It was about determining who would become the living embodiment of a legacy that Queen Elizabeth had spent a lifetime protecting. For generations, this particular role had represented far more than prestige. It symbolized trust. It reflected duty. Above all, it served as a powerful reminder that the monarchy depended not simply on titles, but on individuals capable of carrying immense responsibility without seeking personal reward. Queen Elizabeth's connection to this sacred duty had become so profound that many believed it could never truly belong to anyone else. In the minds of countless supporters, the position had become inseparable from the woman who had devoted more than 70 years to the crown. Yet the institution had always understood a difficult truth. No matter how beloved a monarch becomes, continuity remains essential. The crown survives because responsibilities are passed forward, generation after generation. According to reports from royal insiders, that reality prompted senior advisors to begin reviewing possible successors. long before the public became aware that such discussions were even taking place. Several names were reportedly considered. Some possessed seniority, others carried influence. A few had long-standing connections to important royal traditions. Yet, as the conversations progressed, attention repeatedly returned to one person, Catherine. The reasons were difficult to ignore. Over the years, she had built a reputation for quiet dedication rather than self-promotion. While others found themselves surrounded by controversies, Catherine consistently projected stability. While public attention often focused on royal tensions and family divisions, she remained focused on service. Palace insiders reportedly admired her ability to perform demanding responsibilities without appearing consumed by ambition. In an institution where perception matters almost as much as reality, that distinction carried enormous weight. As discussions intensified, many within royal circles reportedly began viewing Catherine as the natural bridge between the monarchy's past and its future. She represented continuity without resistance to change, tradition without rigidity, modern relevance without sacrificing respect for royal customs. Those qualities transformed her candidacy from a possibility into a serious consideration. Reports suggest King Charles eventually reviewed the recommendations himself. The decision was not reached casually. It required careful consideration because everyone involved understood the symbolic impact it would carry. Granting this responsibility to Catherine would send a powerful message about the future direction of the monarchy. It would also inevitably create disappointment elsewhere. That concern reportedly explains why the entire process remained shrouded in secrecy. Palace officials understood that revealing the discussions too early could trigger internal conflict before the transition was complete. Silence became their shield. Confidentiality became their strategy. Only a trusted handful knew what had been approved behind closed doors. By the time the final decision was reached, several royal insiders reportedly viewed it as the strongest endorsement Catherine had ever received. It was more than recognition, more than approval, more than a ceremonial appointment. It was a declaration that the institution trusted her with one of the most meaningful responsibilities connected to Queen Elizabeth's enduring legacy. But while palace officials celebrated the decision privately, they underestimated how devastating the news would be for someone else. The moment the information reached Camilla, everything changed. What had been a carefully managed royal transition suddenly became a deeply personal battle over status, influence, and legacy. Until that point, the decision had existed almost entirely within a protected circle of trusted advisors, senior officials, and a select group of royals. The secrecy had served its purpose. It had prevented conflict, delayed speculation, and allowed delicate discussions to unfold without interference. But secrets inside royal life rarely remain hidden forever. Eventually, information begins to move. Quiet conversations become whispers. Whispers become rumors. And rumors find their way to the very people they were meant to shield from the truth. According to reports circulating among royal watchers, Camilla had long believed that this responsibility would naturally become part of her legacy. Not because it was formally promised, but because many assumed that proximity to the throne would eventually bring access to the monarchy's most respected traditions. Over time, expectations can become powerful things. They begin as possibilities and slowly transform into assumptions. By the time the palace reached its decision, some insiders suggest that Camilla no longer viewed the role as something she might receive. She viewed it as something she was destined to receive. That is why the news reportedly landed with such force. The responsibility itself carried significance far beyond titles, ceremonies, or public recognition. It represented trust at the highest level. It signaled confidence from the institution. More importantly, it connected its holder to one of the most respected aspects of Queen Elizabeth's legacy. For someone concerned with how history would remember them, such a distinction carried enormous emotional weight. Sources close to palace circles claim Camilla was blindsided when details of the transition finally reached her. Those familiar with the situation suggest that she had not expected Catherine's name to emerge as the final choice. In private, questions reportedly surfaced almost immediately. Why Catherine? Why now? What had convinced senior officials that the Princess of Wales was the right person to inherit such a meaningful responsibility? As those questions spread, tensions reportedly followed. Senior aides allegedly found themselves attempting to calm growing concerns while maintaining strict confidentiality around the process itself. Yet managing emotions became increasingly difficult because the issue touched something deeper than protocol. It touched legacy. And inside royal life, few subjects carry greater sensitivity than the question of who will be remembered, who will be trusted, and who will ultimately shape the institution's future. What made matters even more complicated was the history that already existed beneath the surface. Long-standing rivalries, old frustrations, and years of quiet comparisons suddenly re-emerged. Individuals who had once managed to coexist found themselves revisiting unresolved tensions. Conversations became more guarded. Relationships reportedly grew more complicated. The atmosphere surrounding the palace shifted in ways that many observers struggled to explain publicly but sensed immediately. For Camilla, reports suggest the decision felt increasingly symbolic. It was not merely about a ceremonial responsibility passing to Catherine. It was about what that choice appeared to represent. To some observers, it looked like a powerful endorsement of Catherine's future role within the monarchy. To others, it appeared to mark a significant shift in where influence and trust now resided. Before long, royal watchers began noticing unusual changes in palace dynamics. Subtle adjustments sparked new speculation. Every appearance, every interaction, and every public gesture seemed to attract renewed scrutiny. Questions multiplied faster than answers. And as emotions continued to rise behind closed doors, the carefully protected story became harder and harder to contain. And as emotions intensified, details about the selection process began leaking beyond palace walls. The answer was hidden not in politics or favoritism, but in years of quiet preparation that most people never saw. As details about the selection process slowly began emerging beyond palace walls, a new narrative started to take shape. For weeks, speculation had focused on who had been overlooked, who had been disappointed, and who might have expected a different outcome. Yet behind those questions was a far more important one. Why Catherine? What had convinced senior members of the institution that she should inherit her responsibilities so deeply connected to Queen Elizabeth's legacy? The answer did not appear overnight. It had been developing quietly for years. Long before discussions about this particular role began, Catherine had established a reputation that set her apart inside royal circles. While others often found themselves pulled into controversies, public disputes, or endless speculation, she became known for something much less dramatic but far more valuable within the monarchy: consistency. Again and again, she demonstrated a willingness to respect royal protocol even when public pressure encouraged a different path. She rarely sought attention for its own sake. She understood the importance of patience. Most importantly, she appeared to recognize that the institution often required personal sacrifice in exchange for long-term stability. That reputation did not go unnoticed. As the years passed, Catherine's presence during major state occasions became increasingly significant. Responsibilities once handled exclusively by senior members of the family gradually expanded to include her. With each appearance, she seemed to move closer to the center of the monarchy's future. Not through dramatic announcements or ambitious campaigns, but through a steady accumulation of trust. The process was gradual enough that many people barely noticed it happening. Yet inside the palace, reports suggest that officials were paying close attention. Prince William's support reportedly played an important role as well. Together, he and Catherine came to represent continuity at a time when the monarchy faced extraordinary challenges. Family divisions, public scrutiny, and ongoing questions about the institution's future created an atmosphere where stability became more valuable than ever. Senior advisors allegedly viewed the couple as a dependable partnership capable of guiding the crown through uncertain years ahead. At the same time, comparisons between Catherine and Queen Elizabeth reportedly became more common within royal circles. The similarities were not based on personality alone. Rather, they centered on qualities that had defined the late Queen's reign for decades: discipline, restraint, commitment, and an understanding that service often requires silence. Queen Elizabeth rarely allowed personal feelings to overshadow duty. Catherine's supporters believed she possessed a similar ability. Beyond ceremonial responsibilities, years of charitable work and public service further strengthened that perception. Rather than chasing headlines, she focused on long-term initiatives designed to create meaningful impact. Those efforts reinforced the image of someone interested not merely in representing the monarchy, but in contributing to its purpose. According to reports, palace officials increasingly viewed Catherine as a stabilizing force during a period of transition. While uncertainty surrounded many aspects of royal life, confidence in her continued to grow. Some insiders even began describing her as a central pillar of the monarchy's future, someone capable of helping bridge the gap between generations while preserving the values that had sustained the institution for decades. As a result, This newly assigned responsibility came to be viewed as something larger than a ceremonial honor. It was preparation, a signal, a carefully considered step toward even greater responsibilities waiting further ahead. With every endorsement, every assignment, and every expression of confidence, Catherine's position within the institution appeared stronger than ever. But while Catherine's support inside the institution continued to grow, Camilla's frustration was reportedly reaching a breaking point. Then came the moment that left even seasoned palace staff stunned. A dramatic incident that quickly became the subject of whispered conversations throughout royal residences. By this stage, the pressure surrounding the decision had grown impossible to ignore. What had started as quiet disappointment was reportedly evolving into something much more serious. For weeks, speculation had continued to build. Questions remained unanswered. Rumors multiplied. Every new detail surrounding Catherine's growing role seemed to reinforce the same uncomfortable reality. The future of the monarchy was taking shape, and not everyone was comfortable with where it was heading. According to reports circulating within royal circles, Camilla struggled deeply after learning the full extent of the decision and what it symbolized. It was no longer simply about a ceremonial responsibility being assigned elsewhere. It had become a broader conversation about influence, trust, and the direction of the institution itself. With each passing day, commentators, insiders, and royal observers appeared increasingly focused on Catherine's rising position. At the same time, discussions surrounding Camilla seemed to carry a very different tone. Those close to palace operations reportedly noticed the strain. While official schedules continued as planned, whispers began emerging about growing tension behind closed doors. Witnesses allegedly observed moments of visible distress during private discussions. Conversations that once appeared routine suddenly carried unusual emotional weight. Staff members who had spent years navigating royal sensitivities reportedly sensed that something significant was unfolding beneath the surface. The situation reached a critical point during what sources describe as a tense private gathering involving several senior figures connected to ongoing palace matters. Exactly what was discussed remains the subject of speculation, but reports suggest the atmosphere became increasingly difficult as additional details surrounding Catherine's appointment emerged. For some present, the meeting reportedly represented the moment when months of frustration finally collided with an unavoidable reality. Then came the incident that quickly became the focus of endless private conversations. Rumors began circulating that, shortly after learning further details connected to the decision, Camilla experienced an emotional reaction that briefly overwhelmed her. Different accounts describe the moment differently, and no official confirmation has ever been provided. Yet despite the uncertainty surrounding the specifics, one detail appeared consistently throughout the various reports. Something unexpected had happened, and it immediately triggered concern among those present. Within hours, palace staff were reportedly instructed not to discuss the matter. The message was clear. Confidentiality was essential. Speculation needed to be contained. Questions from outside sources were to be handled carefully. Such instructions only intensified interest. In royal life, silence often attracts more attention than explanation. Senior royals allegedly moved quickly to manage the growing wave of rumors. Efforts were reportedly made to ensure that private matters remained private, while public responsibilities continued uninterrupted. Behind the scenes, however, discussions intensified. Advisors monitored reactions. Staff members became increasingly cautious. Every development was evaluated through the lens of protecting stability during an already sensitive period. Meanwhile, public appearances in the days that followed appeared carefully managed. Schedules were reviewed. Expectations were adjusted. Observers searched for clues in every statement and every interaction. The institution worked hard to project calm, but the questions refused to disappear. Why had emotions reached such a dramatic point? What information had triggered such a powerful reaction? And perhaps most importantly, what did the incident reveal about the future dynamics of the royal family? Because for many insiders, the most troubling aspect was not the alleged collapse itself. It was what seemed to have caused it. The event appeared to expose a growing reality that could no longer be ignored. Influence was shifting, priorities were changing, and the next chapter of the monarchy was beginning to emerge. Yet the collapse itself was not what truly worried palace insiders. It was what the incident revealed about the changing balance of power. Behind the headlines, a larger transformation was taking place, one that signaled the future direction of the monarchy itself. As palace insiders continued discussing the fallout from the controversy, many began reaching a conclusion that would have been almost unthinkable just a few years earlier. The story was no longer simply about a ceremonial responsibility, a disputed decision, or even the tensions it had created. It had evolved into something much larger. Beneath every headline, every rumor, and every whispered conversation lay a deeper reality. The monarchy was entering a period of transition, and the people standing closest to its future were becoming increasingly clear. For years, Prince William and Catherine had been viewed as important figures within the royal family. Now, according to many observers, they were becoming something more. They were increasingly seen as the institution's next defining chapter. What once appeared to be a gradual evolution was beginning to resemble a deliberate shift. Responsibilities expanded, expectations grew, confidence in their leadership continued to strengthen. Public support played a significant role in that transformation. Across countless discussions surrounding the monarchy's future, William and Catherine consistently emerged as figures capable of providing stability during uncertain times. While debates about royal controversies often dominated headlines, the Prince and Princess of Wales appeared to maintain a different relationship with public opinion. Their popularity was not built solely on tradition or title. It was increasingly tied to perceptions of duty, consistency, and commitment. Inside the institution, those qualities reportedly carried even greater significance. Palace insiders suggest that both William and Catherine had gradually assumed a larger role in important royal matters long before the public fully recognized the shift. Responsibilities once reserved for senior figures were increasingly shared with the Waleses. Strategic discussions reportedly involved them more frequently. Their influence, while still developing, was becoming increasingly difficult to overlook. At the center of this transformation stood King Charles. According to reports from those familiar with palace dynamics, the king had come to rely more heavily on William and Catherine as the demands of leadership continued to evolve. This was not necessarily the result of a single decision. Rather, it reflected a broader recognition that the future required preparation. Every institution eventually faces the challenge of succession. The monarchy was no exception. That reality is precisely why Catherine's newly assigned responsibility carried such significance. Many insiders interpreted it as far more than an honor. It was viewed as a powerful expression of trust, a signal that senior figures within the institution believed she was prepared for greater responsibilities ahead. The decision appeared to place her even closer to the heart of the monarchy's future. Comparisons to previous generations soon followed. Royal commentators increasingly drew parallels between William and Catherine's position today and the path once followed by earlier heirs preparing for eventual leadership. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Each generation faced unique challenges, yet the fundamental objective remained unchanged, ensuring continuity while preserving public confidence in the institution. According to palace insiders, what outsiders perceived as isolated decisions were actually part of a much larger process. Influence was not being transferred overnight. It was moving gradually, carefully, and deliberately. Every new responsibility, every endorsement, and every expression of confidence reinforced that progression. The institution was preparing itself for the decades ahead. Viewed through that lens, Catherine's appointment seemed less like a surprise and more like the latest step in a carefully unfolding plan. One designed not merely to address present circumstances, but to strengthen the monarchy's future long after current controversies faded from memory. Yet as confidence in the Waleses continued to grow, another question began surfacing with increasing frequency among royal observers. But as Catherine stepped forward, many began asking what Queen Elizabeth herself would have thought about the historic choice. More than anything else, this story was about preserving a legacy that stretched far beyond any single royal generation. As debates continued over Catherine's growing influence and the significance of her new responsibility, attention gradually shifted toward a figure whose presence seemed to linger over every aspect of the discussion. Queen Elizabeth II was no longer there to explain her thinking, defend her decisions, or clarify her wishes. Yet in many ways, her legacy remained the invisible force shaping the entire conversation. The more people examined the decision, the more they found themselves returning to the same question. What principles would have mattered most to the late Queen? For more than 70 years, Queen Elizabeth dedicated her life to a single idea: duty before self. Through political changes, family challenges, global crises, and moments of extraordinary public scrutiny, she remained committed to the belief that the monarchy survived only when personal interests were placed behind institutional responsibility. It was a philosophy that defined her reign and earned the respect of generations around the world. That is why continuity became such an important part of her legacy. The monarchy, as she often demonstrated through her actions, was never meant to revolve around one individual. It was designed to endure. Each generation inherited responsibilities from the last and prepared the way for those who would eventually follow. Stability depended upon that transfer. Without it, the institution risked becoming vulnerable to uncertainty and division. The role now entrusted to Catherine carried deep symbolic meaning because it reflected those very principles. It was never simply about status. It was never about visibility. Nor was it intended to elevate one person above another. At its core, the responsibility represented guardianship. It required the holder to protect traditions, uphold values, and preserve continuity for future generations. In many ways, it embodied the same philosophy that had guided Queen Elizabeth throughout her historic reign. That connection explains why comparisons between Catherine and the late Queen continued gaining momentum. Supporters pointed not to personality traits or public image alone, but to qualities that appeared remarkably familiar: patience, restraint, commitment, a willingness to place service ahead of personal recognition. These were characteristics many observers associated with Queen Elizabeth, and increasingly, they saw similar qualities reflected in Catherine's approach to royal life. Reports from palace insiders suggest that stability was something Queen Elizabeth valued above almost everything else. While circumstances changed and challenges evolved, the ability to maintain public confidence remained essential. Decisions were often judged not by how they served the present moment, but by how they protected the institution's future. Viewed through that lens, Catherine's appointment appeared less controversial and more understandable. The distinction was important because it shifted the conversation away from privilege and towards stewardship. This responsibility was not a prize to be won. It was a burden to be carried. It demanded discipline, sacrifice, and a long-term commitment to something larger than personal ambition. Those qualities mattered far more than rank, popularity, or expectation. As public reaction evolved, that understanding began influencing the broader narrative. Increasingly, discussions focused less on disappointment and rivalry and more on legacy itself. What values should guide the monarchy forward? Who could best preserve what Queen Elizabeth spent a lifetime building? And how could the institution remain strong through periods of transition? Those questions lingered long after the initial controversy began to fade. They remained at the heart of every conversation about the future. Yet even as many observers became convinced they understood the reasoning behind the decision, one final uncertainty continued to hover over the palace. And as the palace adjusted to a new reality, one final question remained unanswered. In the end, this was never simply about a title, a ceremony, or even a royal role. It was about who would carry forward the values that defined an entire reign. By the time the controversy began to settle, the conversation surrounding it had changed completely. What initially appeared to be a dispute over responsibility had evolved into something far more significant. The public was no longer focused solely on who had received a particular role or who may have been disappointed by the outcome. Instead, attention shifted toward a larger question about the monarchy itself. What kind of future was being built, and who would be trusted to guide it forward? For many observers, the answer seemed increasingly clear. Through a combination of patience, service, and years of careful preparation, Catherine had formally emerged as one of the most trusted figures within the institution. The responsibility she had been given carried meaning far beyond its ceremonial importance. It represented confidence. It represented continuity. Most importantly, it represented a belief that she could safeguard traditions that had survived across generations. In the eyes of many supporters, she was no longer simply preparing for the future. She had become one of its defining symbols. At the same time, the changing landscape presented difficult realities for others. Reports suggest that Camilla found herself confronting a monarchy that looked increasingly different from the one she had once expected. Influence was evolving, priorities were shifting, new voices were becoming more prominent. Whether welcomed or resisted, those changes appeared impossible to stop. The institution was moving forward, and its future seemed increasingly centered on a younger generation. Standing beside Catherine throughout that transformation was Prince William. Together, the Prince and Princess of Wales appeared more firmly positioned than ever at the center of the monarchy's next chapter. Their responsibilities continued expanding. Their public support remained strong. And with each passing year, expectations surrounding their future roles grew even greater. What had once been viewed as preparation now looked increasingly like transition. Throughout it all, King Charles reportedly remained focused on a single objective: preserving stability during a period of enormous change. The challenges facing the royal family were significant, but continuity remained essential. Every decision, every appointment, and every carefully managed transition appeared connected to that broader mission. Protect the institution, preserve public confidence, prepare for the future. Viewed through that lens, Catherine's appointment marked a symbolic turning point. It demonstrated where trust was being placed. It highlighted the qualities the monarchy hoped to carry forward, and it reinforced the idea that service, commitment, and responsibility remained at the heart of royal life. As public attention gradually moved away from controversy and toward the future, discussions increasingly centered on the next generation. The focus shifted from conflict to legacy, from disappointment to continuity, from rivalry to responsibility. In many ways, that transformation reflected the very principles Queen Elizabeth had spent a lifetime defending. Her legacy was never meant to end with her reign. It was meant to continue through those entrusted to protect it, through those willing to place duty above personal ambition, through those prepared to carry forward traditions while guiding the monarchy into a new era. And that may be the most important lesson hidden within this entire story. Institutions survive not because they avoid change, but because they manage it carefully. They endure because each generation accepts the responsibility of protecting something larger than itself. As one chapter closes and another begins, the royal family now finds itself entering a new period shaped by duty, service, and continuity. And while the palace may never reveal every detail of what happened behind those closed doors, one truth has become impossible to ignore. The future of the monarchy is already taking shape, and Catherine now stands at the very heart of it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.